The sentence entered the room not as an attack, but as a decree, as settled and immutable as the foundation beneath us. You don't help the family. You don't eat with the family. My mother, Liz Thompson, pronounced the words while placing a bowl of green beans on the table. Her tone was as neutral as a news bulletin, devoid of malice, which somehow made it worse. It was simply the law of her land. Hi, I'm Maya Thompson. 29, a senior data architect, and in that moment, a trespasser in the kitchen of the 3-bedroom colonial I alone owned. Across the table, the tableau of my family was a study in practiced indifference. My father, Tom, a retired accountant, kept his eyes on his plate, his knife and fork moving with a methodical, soundless precision. He had spent a lifetime balancing ledgers for others. Yet in the emotional economy of our home, he was a silent, crumbling bank. My older brother, Jake, was absorbed in his phone, the blue light casting a hollow glow on his handsome, unlined face. At 32, he carried the perpetual aura of a promising college athlete whose game had ended a decade ago, leaving only a charming ease and an allergy to permanence. His wife, Emma, sat beside him, delicately smoothing her napkin over the gentle swell of her pregnancy. Her smirk was not broad, but a subtle, knowing curve at the corner of her mouth, as if she were privy to a delightful secret the rest of us were too slow to grasp. The lights hummed a flat, fluorescent note above us. There were 4 place settings, 4 chairs. One was achingly, intentionally empty. Mine. I stood just inside the doorway from the garage. My laptop bag, a lead weight on my shoulder, my heels still clicking with the echo of a professional world where my contributions were quantified, valued, paid. I was still wearing the invisible mantle of the salary that fed them, housed them, powered the very bulbs that illuminated their exclusion. The air smelled of roasted chicken and a subtler, more corrosive scent: displacement. I bought the house 18 months ago. After Dad's forced early retirement and Mom's arthritis making their walk-up apartment untenable, it seemed like the logical, loving solution. A fresh start. We'll be a team, I'd told them, my heart swelling with a sense of purpose as I signed the endless streams of paper, each flourish of my pen a brick in this new future. Liz loved the vibrant, noisy street, a constant stream of life to watch from the bay window. Tom cherished the small, tidy park 2 blocks over, where he could feed the squirrels and find solitude. I gave them the large, sunlit guest room with the ensuite bathroom. I took the master bedroom, a decision I'd framed not as a privilege, but a practicality. I'm on calls at all hours. I need the space. The 3rd bedroom became my office, a sanctuary of dual monitors and quiet. For a brief, golden season, it worked. We were collaborators. Mom would leave a plate of cookies by my office door. Dad would quietly fix the dripping faucet. The old dynamic, where Jake's whims dictated the family's rhythms and my role was to quietly clean up the aftermath, seemed like a relic from a different life. I allowed myself to believe we had outgrown it. The first fissure appeared as a soft, offhand comment over a Saturday morning coffee. Liz gazed out the window, her voice wistful. Jake says the city is booming with entry-level management jobs. Emma thinks the hospitals here are wonderful for when the baby comes. I nodded, sipping my coffee, hearing only a mother's hopeful daydream. I was a fool. They arrived on a Tuesday evening. No phone call, no request, just the sudden blare of a car horn, and there they were, piling out of Jake's aging SUV with duffel bags and cardboard boxes, their smiles wide and presumptive. "Surprise!" Jake boomed, pulling me into a hug that smelled of cheap gasoline and familiar entitlement. "The job in Cleveland fell through. Figured we'd come where the action is." Emma, her hand already resting in the proprietary, small-of-the-back pose of early pregnancy, floated in behind him. "Maya, this house is just darling," she said, and her eyes performing a swift, appraising inventory of the foyer, the living room, the staircase. So much potential, and so much space for one person. Her tone was cloyingly sweet, layered with an unspoken question. "Why do you have all this?" That night I lay in my bed, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of them settling into the guest room below. The low murmur of their voices, the thump of a suitcase, Emma's light, crystalline laugh. A cold knot formed in my stomach. The team had new, uninvited players, and no one had given me the revised rulebook. The erosion was incremental, a masterpiece of passive aggression. Jake didn't find a job. He networked, which involved long lunches and longer naps on my living room sofa, his feet in mismatched socks propped on the oak coffee table I'd saved 6 months to buy. Emma nested. She rearranged my kitchen cabinets, citing better efficiency for family cooking. My favorite skillet, the heavy cast iron one, appeared one day on a lower shelf with a bright pink sticky note on it. Too heavy for Liz. I paid the bills. The mortgage, a sobering automatic draft. The utilities which spiked with their presence. The grocery deliveries, which evaporated within days. I worked longer hours in my office, the glow of my screens a barrier against the slow-motion invasion happening beyond my door. The house no longer felt like a refuge. It felt like a ship I was single-handedly keeping afloat, while others leisurely drilled holes in the hull. Then, one evening after a silent dinner where I'd presented the third consecutive invoice for shared groceries, Jake cleared his throat. Emma placed a gentle hand on his arm, a studied gesture of spousal solidarity. "Maya, we need to talk about the sleeping arrangements," Jake began, his voice adopting a reasonable man-to-man cadence that set my teeth on edge. "The guest room is fine for now," I interjected, a preemptive strike. Emma's smile was a patient, pitying thing. "For now, yes, but the baby... Maya, a newborn needs a nursery, a calm, dedicated space. The guest room has no closet, and the bathroom is all the way down the hall. It's just not fair to the little one." She framed it as a moral imperative, a question of fetal well-being, weaponizing her motherhood before it had even truly begun. "This is my house," I said, the words sounding brittle and childish even to my own ears. "Our family's home," Liz corrected softly from the sink, her back to me. "Maya, you're so strong, so independent. They need a softer landing. Can't you just adjust?" Adjust. The word was a sponge, meant to soak up my rights, my purchase, my labor. They weren't asking for a room, they were asking for my sovereignty. The days that followed were a study in psychological pressure. Jake and Emma began to accidentally leave their belongings in the master bedroom. A sweater of Jake's tossed over my reading chair. Emma's prenatal vitamins on my nightstand. They spoke in hushed, excited tones about wall colors and nursery themes within my earshot. They measured the windows. They opened my closet, not to snoop, but to assess, clicking their tongues at the wasted space. My office became my bunker. I worked with a feverish intensity, the spreadsheets and code on my screens a logical universe where inputs yielded predictable outputs. Here, unlike in my own home, cause and effect were respected. The final violation was executed with such serene audacity it left me breathless. I had an on-site client presentation, a rare all-day affair requiring me to wear a blazer and heels and exude an authority I no longer felt at home. As I left at dawn, I glanced at my bedroom door, a ridiculous sense of foreboding washing over me. I locked it. A first. The click of the deadbolt was a sad, small act of self-preservation. The presentation was a triumph. For 8 hours, I was brilliant, respected, in control. I drove home buoyed by a fragile hope, a memory of my own competence. I knew the moment I stepped inside. The air in the hallway was different, thicker. And there, stacked in a neat, uncruel pile against the wainscoting were my things. My favorite pillows, the framed photo of my college graduation, my stack of novels, my computer monitor, its cord coiled like a dead snake beside it. My heart didn't race. It plummeted, a cold stone in my chest. I walked, numb, to my bedroom. The door was ajar. Emma stood in the center of the room, folding one of my cashmere sweaters with the care of a luxury boutique clerk. The room was in transition. My perfume was gone, overpowered by the vanilla-sweet scent of her body lotion. Jake's watch lay on my dresser. She turned, not startled in the least. "Oh, Maya, you're back early." Her smile was placid, benevolent. "I was just finishing up. Liz said it was okay to start moving our things in. We wanted to surprise you." Her voice was a smooth lake. I undisturbed by the boulder she had just dropped into the center of my life. "Why?" I asked, my voice a hollow scrape. "Are you in my room?" She sighed, a patient exhale. "The baby's crib needs that wall for the best light, and the walk-in closet will be perfect for all the tiny clothes. You understand?" She made understanding synonymous with capitulation. I retreated. Not in defeat, but in a tactical withdrawal. In my office, I closed the door. The silence was absolute. I did not cry. I opened my laptop. I did not search for family counseling. I searched for tenant rights, constructive eviction, proof of residency. I pulled up the digital deed, my name bold and solitary under grantee. I accessed 12 months of bank statements, highlighting in violent yellow every mortgage payment, every utility transfer. I compiled a spreadsheet: groceries, household supplies, internet. I created a column for Jake and Emma contribution. It was a stark, beautiful void. The printer whirred to life, spitting out the cold, hard evidence of my life. Not feelings, not grievances. Facts, numbers, signatures. By midnight, I had created 2 packets. The first for Jake and Emma, a formal notice to vacate, citing their status as guests who had overstayed their welcome and violated the homeowner's private space, giving them 24 hours to leave or face legal action. The second, for Liz and Tom, a new household agreement and 30-day notice of change in terms of residency. It outlined a modest but non-negotiable monthly contribution for room and board, clear boundaries regarding private spaces and guests, and a mutual respect clause. Then I placed a pen on top of each packet. The house, for the first time, was quiet, not with tension, but with truth. It was waiting. The next evening's performance was already in motion when I arrived. The kitchen was a staged set for a family drama in which I had no part. The refrigerator, which I had filled 48 hours prior, echoed when I opened it. A half-gallon of milk, an ancient jar of pickles. Liz moved with a ritualistic solemnity, setting the table. 4 plates, 4 sets of silverware, 4 glasses. She placed a steaming casserole dish in the center, a meal I had not been told was being prepared, with ingredients I had not bought. Jake and Emma took their seats. Tom followed, his gaze avoiding mine. I stood at the island, a spectator. Liz finally sat, smoothed her napkin, and without looking at me, I spoke the line she had rehearsed. "You don't help the family, you don't eat with the family." It was the trigger. A profound calm settled over me. I closed the fridge door with a soft, definitive click. I walked past them, down the hall to my office. I opened the drawer, removed the 2 packets, and carried them back. The sound of chewing of cutlery on ceramic was the only soundtrack. I laid the first packet in front of my parents. I laid the second in front of Jake and Emma. The chewing stopped. Jake stared, then snatched up the packet. "What the fuck is this?" "It's a notice to vacate. You have 24 hours, as of yesterday." Emma's gasp was a theatrical masterpiece. Her hands flew to her stomach, a living shield. "Maya, you can't! I'm pregnant! We have nowhere to go!" Her eyes welled with instant, convincing tears. I didn't blink. I opened the folder I'd carried under my arm. I began placing sheets of paper on the table, over the placemats, next to the casserole. Bank statement. Mortgage paid by Maya Thompson. Utility bill paid by Maya Thompson. Internet paid by Maya Thompson. Grocery delivery receipts totaling $1,847 over the past 2 months, paid by Maya Thompson. My voice was calm, a lecturer presenting data. "We all live here. Only one of us pays to exist here." Liz's face crumpled. Not in anger, but in the shock of a foundational myth being disproven. "Maya, please, he's your brother. We're family." Her plea was the last gasp of the old world. "Yes, we are," I said, meeting her eyes. "And this is how I keep a family from becoming a parasite. The clock started yesterday." Tom, for the first time, looked directly at the papers. Not at me, not at Liz, but at the numbers. His accountant's brain, dormant for years in domestic matters, engaged. He saw the columns. He saw the zeros in the contribution rows. He picked up the household agreement and began to read, his lips moving slightly. He did not look up. Jake shot to his feet, his chair screeching. "You're kicking out your pregnant sister-in-law over money? You heartless bitch!" "No," I said, my voice finally gaining a sharp, clear edge that cut through the room. "I am evicting 2 able-bodied adults who have shown zero respect for me or my home. Her pregnancy is a circumstance, not a carte blanche. Your choices brought you here. My choice is to end the exploitation." The silence that followed was total. It was the sound of a system crashing. Emma's tears dried up, replaced by a stunned, calculating coldness. Jake vibrated with impotent rage. Liz looked lost, her moral compass spinning wildly. Only Tom seemed to find north. He slowly, deliberately took a pen from his shirt pocket. "Tom?" Liz whispered, a betrayer's plea. He ignored her. He signed the household agreement on the dotted line next to resident. Then he looked at Jake. "Your sister's right. You've had plenty of time." They left the next afternoon. There were no tearful farewells, no last-minute repentances. Jake loaded the SUV with a sullen fury. Emma shot me a look of pure, undiluted hatred before sliding into the passenger seat. "You'll regret this," she hissed, the kindly facade finally, completely gone. "I've regretted my silence for years," I replied. "This is an upgrade." The house felt different. Not empty, but clarified. The air was lighter, easier to breathe. That night, Liz knocked on my office door, a novel gesture. She sat on the small sofa, looking aged and small. I don't know how it got to that point," she said, her voice raw. "I just always saw him as my little boy who needed saving. And you saw me as the one who had to do the saving," I finished for her. "It wasn't fair, Mom. Love shouldn't require self-annihilation." She nodded, a slow, painful movement. "What do we do now?" I slid the signed household agreement toward her. "We live with dignity, yours and mine." The changes were gradual, a new architecture of respect being built day by day. Liz and Tom began contributing a small, fair amount automatically on the 1st of the month. They asked before having friends over. They knocked before entering a closed room. They cooked meals with me, not just for themselves. I found my father in the garage one weekend building a beautiful bird feeder. "For the park," he said. Then awkwardly he added, "The automatic transfer is set up. I reviewed the budget. It's very clear." It was his apology, his acknowledgement. Jake called once, months later. The motel had been followed by a cramped apartment, funded by a desperate loan from a friend. He was working, a retail job he hated. "It's hard, Maya, really hard." For a second, the old reflex twitched, the urge to soothe, to fix, to open my wallet. I let the silence stretch. "I'm sure it is," I said finally. "I have confidence you'll figure it out." The line went quiet. He had expected a lifeline. I had offered only belief in his own agency, which was, perhaps, the harder gift. One evening, I sat in my living room, with Liz and Tom. We were watching a movie, a simple, mundane act that felt revolutionary in its normality. No tension hummed beneath the surface, no unspoken debts hung in the air. I had bought this house seeking to create a home for my family. In trying to save them, I had nearly dissolved myself. The eviction was not an act of cruelty, but a brutal surgery. It cut away the necrotic tissue of their dependence and my martyrdom. What was left was tender, raw, and real. I didn't get my old family back. That family was a phantom, sustained by my exhaustion. I got something rarer, a family of adults, where no was a complete sentence, where love was no longer a currency demanded, but a presence freely given. The quiet burdens I'd carried for a lifetime were finally, blessedly mine to set down. I had not just bought a house. I had, at last, built a home with doors that locked and a heart that knew its own worth.